BPK Insight hadir untuk mengajak kalian mengenal lebih dekat lewat cerita dan sudut pandang yang berbeda.
Welcome to BPK Insight, BPK Corporate University Learning Podcast. I'm Yuska Medianika Siam, Director of Planning and Organizing of Training of the BPK Training Institute, and today I have with me two very special guests and one very special colleague from BPK, and we would like to discuss about corporate university and share about how it is in ANAO. So let's meet our special guests. This is Miss Jane Mead. Hello, Jane.
Hello, how are you, Yuska?
I'm fine, thank you. And this is Mr. Christian Gage. I almost forgot your name.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, and Mr. Ronnie Sitorus. Yeah, and Jane Mead is the senior executive leader.
Group executive director.
Group executive leader for professional services and
relationships group. Yeah.
And Christian Gage is the senior advisor of ANAO. So I would like to ask a few questions. First to Jane.
Sure.
How is it in ANAO, Jane, about the learning process? Is there a special unit that handles learning process or training in ANAO? And how is it conducted? Starting from planning and organizing and also designing materials, evaluating and everything. Would you care to share with us
Yes,
about that?
certainly. Thank you, Yuska. And it's a privilege to be here today because the reason I'm here is to learn from BPK in terms of how you run your learning and development, because you're probably a long way ahead, a lot more mature than where we are in ANAO at the moment. Our learning at the moment, I guess, is split between the technical and non-technical training, with our corporate group responsible for the non-technical and the individual business units, so financial audit and performance audit, and to some extent my group responsible for the technical training. Most of our training at the moment is delivered in traditional teaching style, so by people coming and presenting material to auditors to learn about their auditing or the soft skills. We do some e-learning for some of our mandatory corporate skills, so some of the things we need to learn about the policies of the organisation, but most of our learning is still very traditional, with a little bit of online due to the pandemic. But we don't sort of have at the moment a central area that's responsible for developing curriculum and courses within that curriculum to develop a pathway for our auditors from being a graduate right through to being management in auditors. So what we are doing over the next few years is establishing what we're calling the ANAO Academy, with the idea of doing something very similar to what BPK has done with the corporate university, however on a very much smaller scale. We're a very small organisation. We won't have a centre, a learning centre as beautiful as this learning centre that we've just had a tour of, but what we want to do is very similar to what you've done in terms of presenting learning rather than training, in making sure that learning is about everything that people do, and having people learn in different ways, so that they can learn. It might be by video, it might be online, having courses available to people when they need it, and mapped to a curriculum for their capability development. The ANAO Academy will be run jointly by me and the Head of Corporate Services in ANAO, so with her responsible for the non-technical part and me responsible for the technical part. So that's what we're looking to do. We're just starting off on doing that, so I'm really happy to be here learning from you today.
Yes.
And Jane, I remember my time when I was at ANAO. I
was the secondary for
Yes,
9 months.
yes.
And I remember at the time ANAO has the buddy systems. So what is your perspective or Kristen's perspective towards the buddy systems combined with the ANAO Academy? What is going to be the future look like?
I'm happy to take that
Yes.
question. Thank you, Ronnie, and thank you again for BPCA for providing a tour of this fantastic facility today. It's been a wonderful opportunity for us to see the corporate university in person and get a better perspective as to how it's operating. In terms of the buddy system, you are correct. We do have a buddy system for new starters. Again, our organisation is smaller than BPCA, but we do have quite a number of new starters every year, both as graduates straight out of university, but also officers at different levels. And what we found is some people need the opportunity to speak to a peer about things. It might be non-technical related, it might be just how to navigate a certain situation or how to respond to a team leader or a manager, or just asking about the environment and what to do in Canberra and so forth. So what we found is when a new person starts, they're assigned a buddy, more so at the junior levels, but it's someone outside of their immediate team that they can go to and just ask questions. So it's trying to build a network beyond a small team structure, but also that they're comfortable to approach and just gain information or navigate the work environment. Jane?
Yeah, so it's probably separate to what we're trying to do with ANAO Academy and Learning. The buddies, I guess, more of a, at the moment anyway, it's more of a socialising, peer support type relationship. So there probably wouldn't be a link with that and the ANAO Academy in terms of learning and development.
Yeah. And importantly with the buddy system as well, what we've found is that most individuals, if you're new to an organisation or if you're new to the workforce, sometimes you can be hesitant about speaking to a supervisor about something. You might just want to ask a question of another person. So it's to provide that avenue so they're not sitting there worrying about something or not actioning something. They can go to someone else and get assistance.
So it means that with the existence of the ANAO Academy, it doesn't diminish or replace the buddy systems.
No, not at all. It wouldn't, because as I say, the academy is more about the learning and development and the formal learning, whereas the buddy is kind of like just having that friend to help you along when you might need help. Yeah.
And another way to think about it is we get graduates each year straight out of university that will start in our organisation. And they may move to Canberra, so they may move from Melbourne to Sydney and so forth. We will assign each new starter a buddy. So the buddy will actually be someone at a similar level. So there might be the previous year's graduates, and their job is to reach out to that individual and to build a connection, a relationship before they start. So it's trying to break down some of those concerns that you might have starting in a new organisation, that you have someone you can actually go to and you can reach out to before you start and as you start in a new organisation.
That's okay. Thank you for that information about the structure. Now, can we bring all that to the context of the BPK Corporate University? I think in a corporate university we have to create a learning environment that is supporting the achievement of the organization's performance. So in that way we have to create various new learning methods, more flexible and more learning opportunities for everyone. And I would just like to ask, do you also follow the same concept in ANAO? As in BPK, we are developing that sort of thing. We are moving forward to that. And so could you share with us what is going on with the learning development in NAO?
Yeah, sure. And I think that's probably the reason why we've identified that we need to set up the ANAO Academy and change the way we do learning, because I think we want people, their learning to be linked to our strategic objectives and what we're trying to do as an organisation. And because of the way training has been sort of decentralised and not structured, we haven't actually been able to achieve that. So what we're looking to do is very similar to what BPK has done, to say, as an organisation, what do we need for people to do their jobs now, but also in the future? So we're also looking at the future auditor. So from a strategic perspective, we've identified in our corporate strategy that our key risk as an organisation at the moment is around people and workforce. So it's getting the right people in to deliver on our objectives as the ANAO and also retaining those people so that we can keep meeting our obligations to the Parliament in terms of reporting. So we've just delivered a new workforce plan to help us to achieve that. So we've said we've got some data behind our people, so about our recruitment, our retention and those sorts of things. So we've got some evidence-based strategies about what we want the ANAO to look like in the future in terms of its workforce. So what sort of skills will people need? How many people will we need to deliver on our mandate to the Parliament? And part of that workforce plan is setting up this ANAO Academy. So it's saying, okay, if we need to bring in all these people and have them delivering in the future, it's a really key risk that we need to train those people. But we need to always train them in line with that workforce plan and our overall corporate strategy. So we need to make sure that our people's learning is tailored to what we're trying to achieve, rather than just sort of rolling out courses year after year that might not be in line with that strategy. So that's why we'll have a focus on both the technical and non-technical. We've also identified that in people's careers, we sort of call it like a map of the London Underground. So you might come in as a financial auditor and you might go along the train line for a little while, then decide maybe I want to be a performance auditor. So in the program, we want to have a way that people can come in and then maybe they'll go on a different line for a while and learn some new skills. And that's also part of our retention strategy, to keep people in the organisation when they may otherwise go and do something else. So that's kind of how we're trying to build our learning and development strategy into our bigger workforce plan, which feeds straight into our corporate plan.
Yeah. It's interesting when you mention about knowledge retentions, because in BPK, I believe that our challenge, because we have like around 7,000 employees, it's like 7,000 employees with a lot of knowledge.
Yeah.
And then I think in the long term, we tend to lose those knowledge. So does ANAO have that kind of problem as well? Because I know that ANAO has like a very quite fast employees turnover.
Yeah.
So what is your strategy to overcome, to make sure that the knowledge stay within in the organization and can be reused in the long term?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question, and that's a key part of our workforce plan, because our turnover, we aim to have about 15 to 20% turnover, so that's our target. In the last few years, our turnover for auditors has been closer to 30%. So that's really, getting in people and losing them very quickly. And the level at which we have the poorest retention is in that sort of manager level, so supervisor manager level. So the people that have come in, we've trained them up, they've become really good auditors, and then we lose them. So that's where you talk about losing the knowledge and that. So we're looking at retention in terms of, as I say, we've collected a lot of data as to why people leave the organisation. Often it is because they want to go and try something different, so they might go into another part of the public service to work on policy, for example, or they may go to a private sector firm because the financial conditions might be better, they might be offered more money. So what we're when we're looking at retention now, we're saying it's really about culture and really about making people want to stay in the organisation. So we're looking at it as more how do we make sure that our culture is supporting people. So if we lose people because they sort of go for a good reason to another job and then they may come back, we're not uncomfortable with that. That's why we're quite happy to have 15 to 20% retention. What we get concerned about is people leave because they don't like the manager that they're working for, or they're not happy with the conditions that they have, or they don't feel that they're learning as much as they could be. So some of that data is where we're trying to tackle the retention thing, is to say, okay, why aren't people happy working for their manager? Why do they feel like they're not learning? So again, that links into what we're doing with ANAO Academy, which is saying, okay, if we say to people, when you come in, we're going to have a pathway for you to continue to learn, that we'll be meeting the needs as you go along, then we think that will assist with retention as well. So it's two things. It's really about changing culture where we need to change culture, and helping people to be better people managers, and also making sure that people can see that learning pathway that they have in their careers. So hopefully then we retain the people and we retain the knowledge.
And part of that strategy for the organisation is to build an alumni connection, so that if we do lose individuals, if they want to get different opportunities within the public sector, as Jane said about going to a policy area of a ministry, if it's to get experience preparing financial statements, we're trying to build that relationship that they do come back again. So one of the things we're very aware of is we're very well regarded with the training program that we provide our new starters, our graduates. So they come into our organisation, they get strong foundational training in terms of accounting and auditing. They're supported through getting their professional qualifications, and then they're seen as an attractive commodity for the broader public sector or the firms. And sometimes they just want to change, they want to experience something else. So by having this alumni sort of perspective where that they can go out, we try to retain the relationship with them so that they can come back again as well.
Yes, I think it's interesting that we are talking about people and the knowledge within them. I think this is right in the context of corporate university, where we think that inside each and every person there's a spirit of knowledge, that they can share with anyone, with everyone. And I think I would like to ask, how is it in NL? How do you capture the tacit knowledge of people, of the employees in NL, and just incorporate them into the training materials? Do you do that?
Yeah, I think we've probably done it to some extent in the past, Yuska. So I think by involving sort of senior people in presenting training and sharing some of their experiences, that we have been, I guess, taking some of that knowledge that people have and filtering it through, and also in sort of teaching people on the job. However, I don't think we've really leverage that knowledge to the best that we could. So I think what I really liked from the discussion with the BPK Corporate University this morning was the way that all employees can contribute to the content of learning by, really tapping into the expertise that you have within the organisation. I think we've done that at the moment, we still do that very informally. So it's really about people either presenting training, by being buddies to people, by working with people, teaching them on the job and mentoring. I don't think we're properly at the moment really capturing that knowledge that we have in the organisation and using it to the best of our ability. So that's something that I think we will hope to do in ANAO Academy, and I've had some really good learnings from you this morning in ways that we can actually do that, because I think that's something that you're doing really, really well that we've been able to learn from. So to make that a little bit more of a thoughtful and structured process than just it's an accident if people learn from others and it's quite informal, yeah.
And also reflecting on the observation of Ronnie earlier in terms of tapping into the knowledge of everyone within the organisation, seeing through the demonstration this morning, through the corporate university, the chat functions and the ability to ask questions of each other and to respond, that's another way of engaging through the learning process through your peers, through your broader office network, and outside of that original or the old structures of just going to a classroom, hearing a lecturer, and then just going away. So to have that ability to ask questions of others, be it formal or informal, I think is important for an organisation too.
Yes. Well, it's still a challenge for us as well. But I think in order to make all that successful, we have to get people to be willing to share. And I think that takes a lot of changing the culture of the people, changing the learning culture, so that people take learning as an investment for themselves that will benefit not only themselves but also the organization. Yeah. So I think this is the most challenging part of our journey to develop the corporate university. What do you think, Jane and Christian? What should we do, to change the learning culture of the organization, of the employees? Maybe you have some insight or perspectives.
Yeah, I think it's a really good question, Yuska, and you say it's your biggest challenge, and I see it as our biggest challenge as well. I think you're probably further along the path than us in that you've set up the infrastructure for people contributing, and therefore hopefully that can change part of the culture. I think when you're changing, and I think you're right, I think the cultural change is to make people realise that they are responsible for their own learning, but also it's not just about them, it's about the organisation. And I think somebody mentioned in the discussion we were having this morning that often people think that learning is, or training or learning is just the responsibility of, in our group it would be, in our organisation it would be corporate services, so that should all be delivered to them, rather than understanding that they need to contribute and collecting that content. So I think what you're doing in terms of getting people engaged, to have discussions, to bring in content, to have those chat forums is a really good way to change culture and the way people think about learning. But I think the first thing that you always need to do when you're trying to have any impact on culture is to get the buy-in of the senior leaders of the organisation, and we spoke about that earlier. In your case, that's with your board. In our case, it's with the Auditor General. So I think once you sort of have that engagement, that buy-in from the top of the organisation, then it's really just about messaging. And I don't want it to make it sound simpler than what it is, because it's not simple, but it's always, I think the first challenge is always getting that top level buy-in. And as you were talking about linking the importance of learning to the corporate objectives and the corporate strategies of the organisation, I think that then helps to set a culture. The next level is always really important, which is almost your senior management sort of level. So, the level where you've got heads of business units. So my level, for example, or the next level. I think it's really important that the managers and the senior managers are the people that really drive the culture in the organisation, so that it becomes something that you talk about every day. And what I loved about the presentation from you this morning was that you were talking about learning is about everything you do. It's something that you're doing every day, and I think it's about really starting that conversation, having it coming right from the top all through the organisation, such that that's just the way you talk. So when I'm talking to the people that work for me, I'm really embedding that thought in them. And I think culture is always about just repeating things until it becomes part of people's subconscious. So I think, I think that's what you're probably doing as well. As I say, you're setting up the infrastructure as well, which we haven't done. But they sort of say, what do they say? Culture eats strategy for breakfast. You can have all the desire in the world or the excitement in the world, but we really need to drive that culture, and that always has to come from the top of the organisation.
Oh, no, I would just echo what Jane has just said. It's that tone from the top which is a starting point for any element of building the culture of an organisation. And it is just emphasising or re-emphasising the importance that the responsibility is not just with the senior leaders, it's with everyone. So it's the senior management, it's the team leaders, it's the audit managers, it's the individuals. So just emphasising that you can't just be a passive observer or a passive participant in anything. You need to take the initiative yourself for your own learning, but it's also the responsibility of the supervisors, of the managers, of the senior officers to continually to promote the need for change and continuous growth.
I think that's well said.
Thank you.
We understand that your intention to come to BPK Training Institute was to learn and discuss and share about the BPK Corporate University. My last question has your goal been achieved, when coming here, and then your expectations when you first came here, and now that you'll be leaving soon, do you think that you've achieved that goal?
You have way exceeded my expectations this morning. I think, I was hoping to learn a little bit about the basics of how the corporate university was set up, but I've learnt so much more. I think what I'm walking away with this morning is really understanding a bit about how you were talking about the culture and changing the culture, some of the processes that you need to go through. But the key for me is how you describe the change from training to learning, and really all the things that encompass learning, and really thinking about the different ways that people learn. I was really impressed with the platform that you have set up for the university, where, for example, the chat forums, all the references you have in there, the content that's in there as well. There's just so many ideas there that I haven't thought of, and even though we're a very small organisation with a lot less resources than BPCAR has, a lot of what you showed me this morning we could actually implement in a smaller way. So a chat forum, you can have that's not that difficult to set up. Collecting contributions of content from staff and sort of putting that in and making it available to people. I think I didn't expect to sort of go away with so many ideas about how we can achieve what we're trying to. I think I'll probably be a little bit scary when I get back to Canberra, because you come away and you learn so much and you come back so energised about what you want to do. So I might scare a few people when I come back and show them photos of things like karaoke rooms and basketball courts, and even though we won't be building something like that, I've definitely, it's been a wonderful experience to learn from what you've done. As I say, you're a lot more further along the process than we are, so it's been wonderful and even though you described there's still certain challenges, I can still learn from areas that you're still working on, because there's just so much there, and I just really look forward to having more conversations in the future as we go along our pathway of building ANAO Academy, to keep learning, if you're willing to keep talking to us, I hope, to keep learning from you in terms of some of the ideas that you're trying. So I go away with, I've got almost a notebook full of notes of things that I've learnt this morning, so definitely exceeded my expectations. Thank you, Yuska.
Well, thank you for all the kind words, but any suggestions for us, maybe, Christian?
No practical suggestions. All I can do is encourage individuals within BPCAR to embrace the corporate university, the concept, the content, the platform, and participate. Like what we've seen today has been eye-opening for us. So it's exciting for us to see, and I hope that BPCAS staff realise what they've got, the benefit of what they've got, and embrace that as individuals within the organisation.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Yes. Well, it's been a pleasure chatting with you. And thank you for stopping by.
Thank you very much for having us. It's been a wonderful experience, and having a tour around the university has been wonderful. So thank you for your beautiful hospitality this morning, and thank you for this session, and I really hope people get a lot out of it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Yuska. Thanks, Ronnie. Thank you.
Forward
Thank you.
to
Thank you.
discussing this more with you in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You have just listened to the BPK Insight with your host, Yuska Medianika Syam. Subscribe to our podcast and catch our next episode. Salam BPK Korporat.